Welcome to A Play to Win Deck Tech, where we talk about decks in cEDH. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Cameron. This week we're going to be talking about Yuriko Tempo, brought to you by Moxfield. If you want to follow along with this deck tech or pick up any of the cards that we talk about, check out the Moxfield link down below.
Now, so this is my particular Yuriko Tempo list. This isn't the list on the database. That list is very good. I've played that one before, but this is mine. These are the cards that I like. If you want to check out the list on the database, I highly recommend that. I will include that down below. But for now, we can get into my list.
You probably know what Yuriko does.
But just in case, let's go over it. Yuriko the Tiger Shadow is a 1 blue and black mana human ninja 1/3 with Commander Ninjutsu. For a blue and a black, you can return an unblocked attacker you control to hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hands or the command zone, tapped and attacking. When a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost, or mana value. It's important to note that Yuriko says each opponent and each ninja, so we're going to be trying to attack our opponents with lots of ninja to deal them lots of damage.
Let's talk about some of the pros and the cons of this deck before we really get into things. Who would you recommend this deck to? What are we looking out for?
Yeah, so this deck is definitely going to favor an experienced pilot, but that doesn't mean a new pilot won't be able to pick it up quickly. The only reason that I say it benefits an experienced pilot is because you're playing a lot of counter magic and you're really looking to play a tempo game. You're looking to kind of control the board just long enough for you to get your win condition out, and being able to do that requires a little bit of an understanding of the meta. Some pros for Yuriko is that you're going to draw a lot of cards. If you can get your plan going, you're definitely going to have more cards than all of your opponents. You also get to attack with a lot of creatures, and if you like attacking with creatures and playing a like Delver tempo game, this is going to give you a similar feel to that. Some cons are you can get your game plan shut off kind of easily if there are too many creatures blocking, especially if you go into the late game and the board is really clogged up.
Oh, here's another pro. Yuriko doesn't give a shit about commander tax.
Absolutely. That is a big pro that I'm glad that you brought up. Yeah, you can Commander Ninjutsu in Yuriko again and again. Doesn't matter how many times they kill it, you can still use that activated ability and it won't affect the mana cost. What that is good for is it kind of discourages your opponents from ever killing it at all, because you can just bring it back in for another 2 mana.
Although it does take a very skilled pilot to be able to play this deck, this is still like kind of a cool stepping stone into cEDH from like the high power side, because you get like that tribal feel to this deck. It feels, especially as you start to play it, that it can almost pilot itself. When you get Yuriko in play, you just kind of feel like the deck's doing all the work and you're just there going for the ride almost.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. And especially because this list probably might not be that different from a regular casual high-powered Yuriko deck. I mean, we're playing a lot of the same ninjas. The only difference is I'm probably playing different interaction and less fun ninjas.
I would also recommend this for newer players because, well, for new to cEDH players, because it's really easy to put together a list on a budget. Like, you technically don't need Mox Diamond or Mana Crypt. Like, they're really important cards, but if you're trying to operate under a very specific set of rules, you know, you have a lot of leeway.
This is probably the deck that cards like Mana Crypt and Mox Diamond and Chromox are least important in, because you're not really looking to get that far ahead on mana. As long as you can hit your land drops and cast your spells early enough, you should be good to go, and you can definitely do that on a budget with Yuriko. Okay, let's get into the deck list. First up, Scroll Rack, one of the key cards in the list.
Yeah, Scroll Rack's really nice because especially when you do have a lot of those like clunky big mana stuff in your hand, you can just put it right on top and then flip over for 8 damage to hit your opponent with.
Yeah, or 8, 9, 10, 11 damage with Temporal Trespass. Trespass is the highest CMC card that I have in this deck. It lets you normally take an extra turn for just 3 blue mana, which is a pretty good rate, and I like to use Scroll Rack to put that on top again and again and just kill my opponents with it that way as well. And then Sensei's Divining Top is in this pile, as well as kind of another distinction that I'm playing is I'm looking to go into the mid-range with Yuriko. I'm looking to play in the long game, and I'm looking to put expensive things on top of my library more than one time, ideally.
Well, let's talk about the game plan in that case then. I think that's a great way to start off with this deck. So what are the ways that we're going to win the game? What are we looking to do? Talk about that.
We're in blue-black, so we're playing Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation and Tainted Pact as well. So that's going to be our main win condition, but I also think it's pretty important in cEDH to have one-card combos in your deck. There are so many ways to win the game and so many things going on in cEDH. It's important to be able to set up your win with one card, and in Yuriko, we have Doomsday for that. It's not the most common one way that I use to win, to be honest. I more often just attack and try to just kill my opponents with actual Yuriko combat damage. But if need be, Doomsday is one card that can set up a win condition. Now, Doomsday is often thought of as a difficult card to resolve, and it often can be, but this particular pile is pretty easy to explain, so I'm just going to go over what you'll need to get started with and how you'll win the game with Doomsday. What you'll need is 3 black mana and 1 blue mana, also 2 islands on the battlefield. You can use 3 black mana to cast Doomsday, exiling basically your whole library and graveyard to find 5 cards. These 5 cards are going to be your Doomsday pile, and you're going to crack that Doomsday pile with a Yuriko draw, ideally. That's why Doomsday is pretty good in Yuriko, because Yuriko can crack the pile. The Yuriko draw is going to be Gush. We can bounce 2 islands to cast Gush for free, drawing 2 cards. The 2 cards are going to be Street Wraith and Lotus Petal. We can cast the Lotus Petal here and cycle the Street Wraith for 2 life to draw another card. That card's going to be Gitaxian Probe. We can pay another 2 life to look in somebody's hand and draw another card. And that final card is going to be Thassa's Oracle. Since we have that 1 mana open from earlier, we can crack our Lotus Petal here to cast Thassa's Oracle with an empty library. This pile is pretty convenient, but not exactly perfect, because we'll need Doomsday plus 1 additional mana and Yuriko already in play to be able to crack the pile. But if that can all line up, which can be pretty simple to set up, you can win the game right there.
Perfect. So that's exactly what you're trying to do. Now, you'll see a lot of times in the early game where to get set up, the play pattern will be get a small creature out on turn 1, attack an open player on turn 2 with it, and then ninjutsu and Yuriko to start to get your card advantage going.
And Yuriko's strength is that it is kind of like a Dark Confidant in the command zone, except you have to tweak your deck a little bit to make that work.
And it's an opposite Dark Confidant, because it hits all of your opponents instead of you.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly the main focus. No, not the main focus, I should say, but one of the good pulls to this deck is that you can slow down ad nauseum players, any other players that are looking to use their life total. Yuriko can end up dealing quite a bit of damage because we're not playing ad nauseum ourselves, so we're okay with playing high CMC spells that we can cast for cheap that may also deal our opponents some damage off of Yuriko triggers. But in order to get those Yuriko triggers, we have to have small evasive creatures first. I can talk about those now.
I think that'd be perfect. I think these are really good signature cards that you will see in Yuriko, and you really won't see too many other places.
The only other places that you might see them are in decks that are also looking to abuse some type of trigger off of cheap creatures, such as like Winota or something like that. So the first couple ones are free ones in Ornithopter, Phyrexian Walker, and Memnite. Ornithopter is evasive, which is pretty good, and these cards can be played back down for free and continue to be ninjutsu'd back up into our hand, which is pretty helpful.
Especially in scenarios where you only have the same amount of mana as you have lands. So like Yuriko, you end up picking up the creature that you played and drawing a card off of it, and then you have 8 cards in hand by the time, and you have to discard. So these are really nice to be able to just run something out immediately and not have to worry about card disadvantage.
Exactly. Next up, we have some Flying Men. These are just 1 mana creatures with flying, except since we're in 2022, a lot of them have a lot of upsides. So Spectral Sailor is here that has flash. Hope of Girper can shut off one of our opponents. Wing Crafter can give our commander flying. Fairy Seer can give us scries back and forth if we're ninjutsuing back and forth. Maelstrom Wanderer...
You wish that was
not
the card.
Maelstrom Wanderer. Mausoleum Wanderer can act as a small counterspell on a stick. Fourth Bridge Prowler can get rid of mana dorks. Ginger Brute has haste, which is helpful, and Tezuko can give basically all of our creatures unblockable.
So those cards seem like they synergize really well with allowing you to easily get Yuriko into play on turn 2, but are there any other upsides to Yuriko being able to trigger off all ninjas?
I'm glad you asked. Of course, we have first a couple of 1 mana ninjas in the deck. Changeling, Outcast, Moth Dust Changeling, and Universal Automaton. These are all changelings, so they count as ninjas, and Changing Outcast and Moth Dust Changing have evasion, so it's the perfect card for Yuriko. A new addition to the deck, which was literally made for this deck, is Thousand Faced Shadow, a 1 mana flying creature that is a ninja that has some other ability. We also have a new addition in Prosperous Thief. This is basically a Malcolm for ninjas. Each opponent dealt damage will create us 1 treasure, and in a deck that doesn't really create that much extra mana, the extra mana from this card is very well appreciated. Ingenious Infiltrator is extra draw, which with Yuriko combined, this can stack up really quickly. Mistblade Shinobi and Skull Snatcher can act as interaction and also trigger off of Yuriko, and Sakashima's Student, one of the best ninjas in the deck that can actually win the game. If you watched our most recent Yuriko victory, you can see exactly how. If there's a dockside in play that would make 5 or more mana and an outlet that can use that mana, Sakashima's Student can ninjutsu back and forth with another ninja to copy Dockside Extortionist, making infinite mana. I can dump all that mana mana into a Thrasios or a Kenrith or something else that'd be able to win me the game.
Kind of a hilarious way to win the game. And if you haven't seen last week's video, maybe you should do that. This seems like a great time to talk about our sponsor, Moxfield. Oh shit, where is it? Moxfield. Moxfield is without a doubt the best site for brewing and building your Magic the Gathering decks. They are consistently adding new features. One of my favorite functions is the compare function, which lets you easily compare decks to see the differences. Moxfield looks great, better than every other service that's out there. So make sure you use them, because otherwise I won't be able to read your list. So I noticed that we're still not done with talking about all the other creatures. What are some of these other tech creatures that you're running here?
Right, yeah. So those are all the signature creatures to the deck, all the ninjas and ninja enablers. But we also have Gilded Drake, Phantasmal Image, Drothy Voidwalker, and Opposition Agent. These cards can both act as interaction or are just solid creatures, sometimes with evasion. They're just cards that should be in a blue-black creature-based deck, I think.
Nice. Is the other creature in your Tutors pile?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, great. We'll talk about that later.
For everyone who's following along by card type at home, the other creature is a spicy one, and we'll talk about that in a second when we get to Tutors.
That sounds great. Well, before we get there, let's talk about some of the interaction and protection, because this list, Yuriko in general, runs a lot of really special interactive pieces.
Absolutely. One of the ones that I'm most excited about is Grafdigger's Cage. Grafdigger's Cage is an extremely powerful effect in the meta that I see. It stops a lot of win conditions, and it doesn't stop any of our win conditions. So it is my opinion that if Grafdigger's Cage does not fuck you up, you should consider playing it. But besides that, most of our interaction is going to be spell-based. We have a couple of the creature-based ones in Opposition Agent and Drothy Voidwalker, but for the most part, we're looking to interact on the stack. So for counter spells, we have a lot of free ones. Fierce Guardianship, Mental Misstep, Pact of Negation, Mind Break Trap, which is one that I'm super excited about, Force of Negation, Force of Will, Misdirection, and Commandeer, which is a big mana value that will hit off of Yuriko and can do a lot of damage in counter wars and interaction battles and can really help you swing the tempo in your favor.
And is not one that a lot of people are expecting either, so it can really help with the surprise factor.
Yep, and in my opinion, these are cards that help you really get ahead in tempo decks. I can exile a blue creature that I formerly ninjutsu'd to my hand to the Commandeer to make it cost free and use someone else's interaction to get rid of one of their things. Commandeer is just, in my opinion, one of the key interaction pieces of Yuriko. But besides free interaction, we also have a couple 1-mana interaction. Dispel, Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, Swansong, and Miscast can counter a lot of things that you see regularly for just 1 mana. And Counterbalance is one of my favorites in this deck. In Yuriko, I'm not looking to spend a lot of mana on my interaction. I'm looking for a lot of it to be free, and Counterbalance offers a lot of free interaction. Now, Counterbalance is kind of bad in that it can reveal to my opponents what I have, but sometimes that can be a good thing. If I reveal a Force of Will, everyone is now afraid of a Force of Will, so they might not go off. And then also, of course, with Sensei's Divining Top and Scroll Rack, Counterbalance gets a lot better.
Great! Now, those are the ways that we're interacting on the stack. Do you have any other ways to interact with things that are on the board?
Absolutely. Chain of Vapor is a good one, and one that should probably go in every blue deck, but we're also playing Dismember, Snuff Out, Deadly Rollick, and Submerge interaction that looks very expensive, but we can normally use for free or very low mana, and extra hits like that with Yuriko are going to build up over time.
How are we finding all of these pieces that we need? There's not like a ton that we have to assemble here, but we definitely still need things to put together a win.
Yes, okay, so let's go over Tutors. This is the spicy include that I'm trying out right now, one that I'm super excited about, Varagoth, Blood Sky Sire. In my opinion, this is kind of exactly what you want to be doing in Yuriko. Although this card is a little bit slow, I have found my metas leaning more towards the mid-range and wanting to grind for value a lot more. I'm seeing a lot more Thrasios and stuff, so this card allows me to tutor to the top of my library almost every turn. If I can connect with my other creatures, I should probably be able to connect with this guy, and if that means I can put expensive spells or powerful spells on top of my library every turn to deal damage with Yuriko and then to draw and use them to win the game, I think that's a powerful effect. The only issue is it is expensive and it's a little bit slow, but I'm okay with that.
But what's nice is that it doesn't even have to connect to boast. You can still boast during the attack, and if it turns out someone wants to trade their Tymna for it, Well, now they're going to have a 5-mana Tymna on their hands, and you still got a Demonic Tutor off this.
Yep, you're exactly right. Another reason here that I'm not playing No Rod is I like Wishclaw Talisman, and I'm going to play Wishclaw Talisman, especially in a deck that can win off of one card. I think tutors are very valuable, and since I'm in black, I'm going to use all the best ones that I can find. So that also means Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Intent can get rid of our creatures to find whatever we need. Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor are also very powerful. Mystical Tutor can get us almost anything we want, and Limdul's Vault is a tutor without being a tutor.
Super nice when there's an opposing opposition agent in play.
And I'm not using my life total for much else, so I can go very deep on Limdul's Vault.
So your commander's your main form of card advantage, but there are a couple of other pieces that you do run to help get some more.
Yep, yeah, I'm not running a ton of extra card advantage because, like you said, Yuriko provides so much of it, and some of my ninjas provide card advantage as well. If the Gush doesn't end up in our Doomsday pile, we can use it earlier for a free draw 2. There are books written about Gush. It's a very powerful card, so getting to use it is a nice one. And then I'm also playing Mystic Remora and Brainstorm. Brainstorm particularly powerful in this deck because I can put cards back on top of my library to make them deal a lot of damage, and I think Mystic Remora is just too powerful not to play.
So how are we paying for everything?
Right, mana, ramp. This deck doesn't play a lot of it, but we are playing some of the necessaries. Chromox and Mox Diamond are great at providing the pips that we need. Soul Ring and Mana Crypt actually not that great in this deck, but in my opinion they are good enough, especially with taxing effects and other issues that you can run into. Although we won't use the generic mana that often, when things go wrong the generic mana is helpful, and Mox Diamond is a good one because we are having Yuriko out all the time, every time. And then besides that, we have lands. I'm including Agadeem's Awakening and Seagate Restoration as lands because in this deck more often than not they are lands, but Agadeem's Awakening can offer us some recursion on our creatures, and Seagate Restoration can draw us cards if the game goes very late.
And that hurts to flip off of a Yuriko too.
Big time. We also have some new additions in Otawara and Tekonama. Otawara is basically uncounterable removal, and Tekonama is more recursion, which is kind of uncounterable, and that's pretty good. We're also playing Cephalid Coliseum and Shinzo Death's Storehouse. Since this is a Tainted Pack deck, we aren't playing no duplicate basics, so we get a little bit more free range, and these guys come in untapped, so in my opinion, they are pretty close to free. We're also playing Fetch Lands to find some duels and basics. We have some duels in basics in Snow-Covered and regular basics here, as well as Watergrave and Underground Sea, and then a slew of, in this deck, effectively 2-colored lands that come in untapped in Command Tower, Mana Confluence, City of Brass, Underground River, Morphic Pool, Clearwater Pathway, Darkslick Shores, Sunken Ruins, and hopefully we get it every single time, Gemstone Caverns.
And that's the list. That's all 99 cards that Dylan has paired up with Yuriko right now. So we're going to start talking about some of the statistics of this deck here.
Yeah, let's go over to Moxfield to check out some of the stats and maybe do some test hands.
We can see here that the deck is 52% blue, which I think is a great place to be, and 30% black and then 22% colorless, which is kind of a funny number to me because even though you're running less mana producing artifacts, you are running a lot of colorless 1-drops like the Ginger Brute and the Universal Automaton that help bump that number up. So our average converted mana cost is about 1.53 with lands and about 2.1 without. Certainly a little bit higher because A, we're not running Ad Nauseam, and B, Yuriko kind of wants the CMC to be higher on a lot of these other cards too. I have a test hand.
We should talk about what we're looking for in Yuriko before we get into the hands. That's important to know. In my experience with the deck, the things that are most important are a turn 1 evasive creature or ninja creature or some type of turn 1 creature into a turn 2 Yuriko, and being able to hold up interaction during that time period or play something that can affect the board during that time period is also good. Let's talk about who we're playing against, what's the pod, what turn order we're going in.
Okay, so we're going to play against Paco Halden, who's going first. We're also playing against Tymna Jessica, and then we are on Yuriko going third, and then number 4, Wrath Stacks. This is an interesting pod.
All right.
Our hand is Sunken Ruins, Darkslick Shores, Island, Grafdigger's Cage, Mindbreak Trap, Universal Automaton, and Chain of Vapor.
Yes, I definitely like this hand. You have the turn 1 evasive creature, although Universal Automaton isn't actually evasive, but it is a ninja, which means that it can potentially give you more Yuriko draws if you get Yuriko into play. You're attacking on turn 2. I think there is a good chance that you'll be able to get through on damage, but you might not be able to get through on much more damage after that. Luckily, you have Grafdigger's Cage, which I think is going to affect the table pretty well. It stops Paco and Halden. It stops Birthing Pot.
It stops Tymna Jessica quite a bit, too.
Grafdigger's Cage stops a lot of things, so that's good. And you also have Chain of Vapor, so if you desperately need to get rid of a blocker so you can get a more card advantage, you can do that if necessary, or stop a win condition that is board related. And then the Mindbreak Trap, if someone goes to storm off, you have protection for that too. So I think this hand is great.
I think so too. Let's deal another hand. Second hand. Oh, this one has no lands. This is Soul Ring, Universal Automaton, Miscast, Mox Diamond, Phantasmal Image, Swan Song, and Grafdigger's Gauge. Boo. This is like so close. So this hand has Takunuma, Abandoned Mire, Watery Grave as the 2 lands, Phantasmal Image, Mystic Remora, Counterbalance, Tainted Pact, and Lotus Petal. This one's interesting because you have Counterbalance as like a really good spot of interaction, right?
Turn 1 Counterbalance isn't bad.
Or you could do turn 1 Mystic Remora, but you're not going to see Yuriko for a hot second here. You could technically turn 1 Phantasmal Image to turn 2 Yuriko.
Honestly, yeah, this isn't really a Yuriko start. I'm not even sure if it's right to keep this hand because I don't know if the Yuriko deck can back this type of hand, but this is a hand that I would definitely be greedy enough to want to try out and see how it works. Us going third is not ideal, but starting the game off with, in some order, Mystic Remora and Counterbalance is fun enough for me, and I think that will do something, so I would probably keep it, although I could definitely see an argument for mulling down to 6 there.
Here, let's try this hand. Watery Grave, Mana Confluence, Miscast, Scroll Rack, Flusterstorm, Counterbalance, and Demonic Tutor.
Boo!
Boo!
Ship this one immediately.
Gitaxian Probe, City of Brass, Diabolic Intent, Gush, Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor, and Prosperous Thief.
I think bad.
Ship
it again.
Ship
yeah,
it.
mulligan again.
All right, so this is a mull to 6 here. This is Misty Rainforest, Snowcover Island, Underground Sea, Agadeem's Awakening, Tainted Pact, Misdirection, and Ingenious Infiltrator.
I don't like this one either.
Honestly, we're going to 5.
We're going to 5, yeah.
This 5 is Polluted Delta, Spell Pierce, Mystic Remora, Prosperous Thief, Morphic Pool, Command Tower, and Phantasmal Image.
This one isn't great, but it's another mulligan to Mystic Remora, and I think it's potentially will get us back into the game. I think you keep Land, Mystic Remora, Miscast, and Prosperous Thief.
And then bottom, a land and a Phantasmal Image.
Or maybe, I don't know, this might be right to keep Phantasmal Image in this deck. There's a chance you get a Timna. I might keep I might keep the Phantasmal Image instead. Bottom, a land, and the Prosperous Thief.
Great. Okay, so this is a 5 that we're keeping. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at Patreon, like our $50 patrons.
Derek Vent, Byron Wang, C, Hwaji Ahmed, Anime Titties, Jacob Depp, Reese Uker, Unforeseen God, Kai Hornisher, CZ, Michael Ballou, Jan Wildfang, Adrian Grimm, Sleepy Jarvis, Tommy the Oddball, Swampy McGee, Peter Larson, Cameron James, Jormax, Ugly Moxfield, and Baby Jeepus. Thanks, y'all.
Check out our Bonfire store for our t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, and all of our other play-to-win merch, too.
If you want to check out any of the cards today, you can do so at the Moxfield link down below. If you go to that Moxfield link, you can buy the whole Yuriko deck if you want.
So check that out, and also check out our Alter Sleeves link. You can get 5% off your orders there.
You can also pick up any Dragon Shield product at the Dragon Shield affiliate link down below. That'll help support the channel.
And of course, PlayToWinMTG.com still has some of the OG playmats there, as well as our coins, so check that out, too.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time. Oh, this guy's supposed to be bald.